Hey, CJ, welcome to Resilient Retail. So excited to talk to you today. Just to start out, I feel like this is all sorts of a loaded question, but who are you and what do you do?
Oh, great. By the way, thank you so much for having me on here. It's so great to chat with you about what we're about to dive into. My name is CJ Johnson. I am a content creator and a startup advisor. I've been working in these industries for such a long time that now I feel like really old whenever I answer this question. Top level, I'm a dad, and I'm a son, a brother, and a friend, and just a person who's just trying to make a difference in this world any way that I possibly can. But professionally speaking, I've been in the entertainment and advertising industry for over 15 years. Moved to Los Angeles when I was 18, went to art school. After that, just kind of hit the ground running. And I was very interested in trying so many different avenues of what entertainment looked like behind the scenes and in front of the camera. And eventually, I was able to take all those skills and slide that into advertising, specifically in digital advertising. And I had no interest at all in being an advertiser, but it's just life has a funny way of doing that for you, because all the strengths that I had in entertainment completely applied to what I was doing in advertising. So since then, tech startups to Fortune 50 companies, and again, as a content creator, it's mostly like lifestyle and fashion and just politics, all sorts of fun things.
Yeah, all of the things. This is why I know we're going to have such a great conversation, is because we are both kind of rooted in content, but with different kind of like topics surrounding that. And I think we're going to get really deep into a lot of different things, which is why I'm so excited for this conversation. Before today, you and I had kind of talked before, and you called what's going on right now, this period, the great migration to e-commerce. Can you tell us what you mean by that and what it means for retail and entertainment and all these different industries?
Yeah, absolutely. To be completely transparent, a lot more people should have shifted to the e-commerce side or just the digital side years ago. So because of the pandemic and COVID-19, it forced everybody to do two things. One, reevaluate just what their business is doing, so they're able to kind of like re-game plan things. And two, obviously, that's going to be your main bread and butter if there's such a thing as social distancing and physical locations closing down permanently or temporarily. So a lot of people that were ahead of the game, they're already sliding into that avenue of using digital means to promote their businesses. They're fine. It's the ones that, they were the brick and mortar and they were very resistant to change. And e-commerce has been a growing industry for such a long time that, even what it is now compared to a year ago, it's so vastly different. It's just so vastly different. Because again, like these industries have more time to develop more features, more products. So now if you're using e-commerce, it's way easier to use now. You get faster results now too.
Yeah.
And that game plan of winning is just so much easier to plan for. Whereas before, I think there was a lot of beta testing going on. This might work, this might not work. Now we have these very solid answers of like, okay, great. You know what your business is. You know what your value proposition is. Here are the means to advertise. Here's what you need content creation wise. Yes, you need a website. Yes, it needs to look good. If it looks clunky and outdated and it's slow, you're losing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not even like, taking out the time and by the way, there's like YouTube tutorials. One of the things I love about Shopify is the customer service is just like out of control. That's one of the main reasons why Shopify, in my opinion, has done so well, is that out of all of the platforms that I use, very quick with responses, and also like real customer service. Nobody is like, and I think that actually helped a lot with the growth of e-commerce, because that made people feel very like, oh wow, like comfortable. okay, I don't have a lot. They're answering all my questions very quickly. Like,
Yeah.
okay, um, and it just honestly, it just paved the way for an easier road to success.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an exciting shift. And like you mentioned, and Harley talked about this in the very first episode, he designated resistant retailers versus resilient retailers, resistant ones who have kind of ignored e-commerce, kind of ignored the waves, the resilient ones who, even if they had never done e-commerce before now, they looked at this problem and said, okay, but we can do that. Like we can take it, we can pivot, we can do e-commerce. You've worked with so many brands and companies on this kind of stuff. How, if there's someone out there who's like, okay, for the first time I'm getting on the e-commerce site, maybe they have a store going, but they're still just trying to figure it out. From your perspective, what are some of the most important like first things to nail down on the e-commerce side of your business?
Sure. I think at the beginning, this is like at the beginning stage of like any business that you have.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few missteps that people have because I'd say probably one of the biggest flaws that I see of anybody creating a business in general is that they just sort of make up what the value proposition is. So what I mean by that is that like for example, if somebody says, hey, I just have this really amazing idea for a t-shirt brand, and I'm going to open up a store on e-commerce, and then they get no sales, and they're kind of scratching their heads of like, why didn't I,
Mm-hmm.
what's wrong here? And then they go backwards, right? Then they start to develop a business plan, a marketing plan, all of that. One of the first steps that you can do to make this easy for yourself is create like almost like what we call like a brand declaration, like a brand Bible. And all that is like you really jotting down the voice, the tone, the messaging, the purpose of why your brand even exists.
Yeah.
And that should be a really amazing reference and guide for you, because then moving forward, you understand, okay, if I want to make a t-shirt company, this is going to be for this specific audience. We're going to use these colors, this font, all of these like these things that you think you take for granted. If you kind of have them mapped out in a guide, like just a little playbook, like 7 to 8 slides of like a presentation for yourself and for your team, that makes these things easier. You need to make sure you have a website. You need to make sure you have social media channels. And one of the funniest things about this is that people get so overwhelmed when they hear that, because they're like, oh, that's just so much to do. But the reason why it sounds like it's so much to do is because they never created any sort of guide or a checklist or a reference in the first place. So they're actually they're going off of what they hear and what they see other people do. Mm-hmm. And that will always work to your detriment. So again, if you're making a t-shirt brand, for example, you want to make sure you know who it's for, why you're doing it, who you're selling it to, how you're selling it. Do you need to be heavy on your website? You need to be heavy on social media, influencer marketing. What's that all about? You need to use that. Are you good at photography and you want to take some photos? That saves you costs. But again, if you have like a brand Bible, a brand declaration guide, all those questions get answered for you so quickly. It builds confidence and all sorts of. It's just awesome.
Yeah, I think that's such good advice, and especially for brick and mortar stores. My guess is a lot of them, especially like a single owned store, a small boutique, probably has never thought to do that, because there's not all that much branding necessarily, visual branding that goes into a store. You got to have your sign, your logo, whatever, it's small, it's very small. But when you go online, the brand has to be so much bigger, because you don't have the 3-dimensional aspect of the brand that you have in a store. And it's funny you mentioned that, like, if you have it and you can hold that, like the Bible of your brand, of who you are, why you exist, what you feel and look like on the outside, it's something I'm hearing in a lot of these conversations, is the brands who have been able to be super resilient and make, instead of massive pivots to like completely undoing their business to start selling only masks and hand sanitizers and having to do all this crazy stuff, there's these businesses that are making very, very, very small pivots. They're doing very small things to stay resilient. And all of them say it's because we know who we are. And as long as we have that, we can morph and we can change, but we're holding on to that. So I want to get into another topic, which is influencer marketing.
Sure.
Super interesting topic. You had mentioned it a little bit. You are an influencer. You've helped a lot of brands do influencer marketing. I would go to guess that a lot of brick and mortar merchants have no idea what even this is, or they're kind of in that state of like, oh, influencers are those fashion kids on TikTok, and like that has nothing to do with my brand. But
Yeah.
what is influencer marketing?
Sure. Yeah. The best way to explain influencer marketing is that it's the new water cooler. There is no more water cooler. You go on social media for the water cooler, right? So if you're usually at work and you go to the water cooler and there's five of you talking, and Ben always has the coolest things to talk about. He always knows what's going on. It's part of the highlight of your workday is talking to Ben. Well, now at social media, you have so many different bins and so many different forms, so many different ethnicities, women, men, so many different ages, so many different niches, and it's almost like you have like your own salesperson,
Yeah.
and that's awesome because if you understand influencer marketing, you do it well. That's exactly what you want, right? You want like a loyal customer that has like a big voice that can influence and attract new customers to you. So that's one of the cool things about influencer marketing. Another thing about influencer marketing that I used to point out more, but I think more people get it now, is that imagine the money that you spend creating anything, rather it be photos, videos, or maybe you're like at that level where you can like pay for a commercial, and you want it to be on broadcast, or you want to pay for like radio spots. You compare that to the budget that you would have to spend on influencer marketing. And it's like 1/10 of the budget that you would have to spend on influencer marketing. And you have more people that are creating all of those assets for you and putting the word out for you. It's like so you're saving money on making 10 commercials versus investing in one, or 20 commercials instead of investing in one. And then the good news is that if it works out for you, or it works out for them and they love your product, they want to keep messing with you, you have an ongoing relationship of somebody creating content for you, and getting the word out for you on a consistent basis. So no matter what, you're always saving money on influencer marketing. Again, the reason why people are resistant to it is because they see it as fraudulent. The ones that are resistant to it, they see it in a way of like, I know what an influencer is. I mean, at this point, most brick and mortars do know what an influencer is. And they do talk to their, I mean, I live in Los Angeles. So there's a lot of places that make a big emphasis on like, bring your friends and bring this person and invite this person. And they're very social media savvy. But one of the things that I've always found that people are resistant of is that they just feel like it's just fraudulent. Like it's, I'm hiring somebody with 1 million followers, and then what are they going to do? They're going to, eat my food for free, and I pay them, and then, what do I get out of it? And it's almost like you just forget like the other equation to that. There was a business. They were, and I've worked with every single industry, by the way. Anybody that's listening. So, and I've implemented a lot of these strategies in those businesses. So it's always funny when people are like, "Oh, like influencer marketing, it's just a fashion thing." No, it's not.
No.
I'll give you a really great example. There was a top of the line skincare spa in Santa Monica, and their business was brick and mortar. And my company at the time, we built out a website for them. We built out social media. All of these things that you and I are talking about right now, we did it for them, and they were just like, oh my God, every step of the way, they're just like, when do we see sales? When do we see sales? By the way, I usually give this a 3-month, 3 months. You start to see return on investment. So this is month 1. We're just building things and just putting it out into the world. And then we say, here's a list of influencers that fit your industry, that niche, that talk about skincare. They talk about taking care of themselves, or fashion bloggers, whatever. We're going to reach out to them. You give them a free session, and this is the deliverables that you get out of it. Are you good with that? They're like, oh my God, we got to spend time doing this. And then, oh my God, it was such a nightmare because every time an influencer would be there, I'd get a text or a phone call or an email of like they're ungrateful. They just come in here and they get their free session and then they just leave. And here I am, just like, wow, it was a microcosm of a macrocosm, which is that like people are very resistant to this without even seeing it all the way through. So this is what happens. Month 2, all of these influencers post their content in various ways: Instagram, Twitter, blogging, all of them 5 stars, customer service, all of them writing reviews.
Yeah.
A lot of them did more than what we asked, for the record. And guess what happens? Month 3, they got, I believe it was like 150% increase in visitors and in sales.
Yep. There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
People were booking online, by the way, where people weren't able to do that before.
Mm-hmm.
That was also a thing. And they had a lot of returning customers that were like, oh, wow, like now your website is easier to use.
Yeah.
And they didn't even know that. That's the thing. You can't test for things like that. And people just assume that like, because nobody's talking about it, they won't be happy that you're improving these little things. So that's another thing too, is that when people are resistant to a lot of these technological advancements and influencer marketing, things like that, it's like my consumers aren't asking for that. I know my customers are not asking for that. It's like, that's because you never presented it to them. Yeah.
You haven't even tested yet.
Yeah. What are you basing that off of? Again, if I had, if you don't think outside of the box, how are you supposed to grow? Mm-hmm. And that's another thing. You don't want your business to be stagnant. You want growth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something too, just like, okay, we found these influencers who we think are good for you and let's try this. How do you even go about finding those influencers in the first place? How do you know which ones are going to be good for your brand?
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, finding the right influencer for your brand, your business, is as simple as you doing it yourself, like going on these different social media platforms. It's so simple to do now at this point, just by using keywords and hashtags and following the following of other influencers in similar industries. There's so many databases out there and so many brokers and agencies that are just salivating at the mouth to help broker these deals for you. But what you're actually looking at, no matter how you're doing it, is you are making a list. Rather that's a third party doing it or you're doing it yourself, and you want to actually have 20 to 25 influencers. So that's a magic number that I've seen work. Mm-hmm. So 10 is too small, 15 not even, but 20 to 25. So you got a budget for that.
Yep.
First of all, for all of you out there that are like, man, I'll just get away with doing a free product, and I have high value with what I'm doing. Understand that on the other side of that, which I want to get into real quick, is that an influencer gets so many offers on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So many offers of free shit and free shit with pay or just pay. Mm-hmm. So if you think you're going to get away with it of just like giving them your product and like, we have the best product, dude, I have 5 of your competitors saying the same thing and they're willing to pay me more. So you might not even get a response from me because of that.
What's the value prop there, right?
There's no value proposition at all. Because remember the influencer, it's actually a higher risk for the influencer because they're making an advertisement to their community. So that's a much higher risk. So any sort of upfront pay, and then by the way, you're getting content out of it. No matter what, you're going to get a photo, a video, a review, a social share. All of that does add up, right?
Mm-hmm. That you would have had to pay to create anyways yourself, so you can just switch your resource brain a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're really smart, you would use user-generated content more often than not, because that's always going to be something that is going to give you 3 times the return on investment. And so anyway, when you curate that list, you're not just looking at the followers, you're looking at the engagement rates. So you can do that in several different ways. There are apps that you can use and platforms where you can see like what are the real numbers here. A lot of those services are free, or
Mhm.
you can just do the eye test, right? So that is, let's say you have 40,000 followers, and I'm looking at like something around the rate of like 1 to 3% of engagement. Um, Usually, on average, we want to look for 2.5.
Mhm.
And you can see that in the comments. You can see that in the likes. It's a very easy way to see if somebody fabricates their numbers as well. If you're following somebody that has 1 million followers and they have like 10 comments and they have 500 likes,
Yeah.
those numbers don't add up, right?
Mhm.
So you're not necessarily looking at the followers either. Nano influencers, which is under 5,000 followers, micro influencers, which is under 50,000 followers. Those are really, really awesome influencers to reach out to, because typically what that means is because they have a smaller community, their engagement rate is actually higher.
Yeah.
So you really want to like find somebody that's in that really interesting spot of maybe 10 to 20,000 followers, because you know that you're going to get something pretty good out of that. That also won't cost you an arm and a leg. So that's another thing. You don't need to be looking for Kylie Jenner. You don't need to be looking for somebody that has 1 million
Yeah.
followers. No. No. If you have a tech company, no, nobody's asking you to go get the fitness model that's like 19 years old. Um, if you're a t-shirt brand, nobody's saying that you have to get like the jack dude that's always shirtless at the beach. No, don't
Yep.
get that guy. Get the 17-year-old that's always like rocking different types of shirts that would most definitely be down to rep you. And influencers will keep you honest too. That's another thing that a lot of
Yeah.
people are afraid of, is that if an influencer isn't interested in your brand, you may not be as appealing as you think. So if you're not rocking the way you think you should be, and then an influencer is not interested, then that means you need to be taking another look at things, right?
Yeah.
And some people don't like that either. So that's just me keeping it real. That's just me keeping it real.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's nothing better you can do than find the holes in your business or what's not attracting people, because that's how you make money. That's the basis of the
Yeah.
business here. So even if you do a test with influencers and you come back with this kind of negative response, it still wasn't wasted resources and wasted
No,
money. It was actually
no,
a
not at
really
all.
great investment that's going to protect you in the long run.
Absolutely. And I think, and again, that's what I'm saying, is that some people look at it sideways because they're like, oh man, all these like bougie, this and that. But remember, again, we defined what an influencer is. That influencer could eat like at this stage in life, each of us should know at least one person that is considered an influencer that
Yeah.
can help us promote our business. Period.
Hmm.
Period. There's at
Yeah.
least one person in your circle.
Yeah.
So you can't ask somebody for a favor. You can't pay somebody a little bit of something. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
like that is an example of being creative.
I love it. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about, because I think this is really important, especially for right now. You are actually currently working with Google as a next gen policy leader. I just think that work is incredible. And I wanted to just give you the space to kind of talk about that work and what you're doing and kind of what you've learned throughout the journey of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Google Next Gen Policy Leader, also a Sunrise Movement creator, helping out AOC get the word out about environmental justice. And what I do with Google is it's really special. It's really awesome. I get to work with policy people that are from all diverse backgrounds. In fact, I think there's a representative of every ethnicity at this stage all around the United
Yeah.
States. We come together and we discuss about how technology impacts our communities, all of our communities, and we're all representing different organizations. All of them are recognizable names. I am probably, me and a few other people are the media specialists of our group. Mostly it's policy people. And as a media representative, we're advertising companies, we're influencers. Shout out to my girl Jenny Yang. She's an amazing Asian comedian who wrote Last Man Standing. Used to write for Last Man Standing, a Tim Allen show, which, by the way, is a conservative show, and she's super liberal. So again, just comes to show you, like, it's all good.
Yeah.
We're not as divisive as you might think. And yeah, we talk about different ways and different strategies and how we can help our community. What Google does is they invest in our ideas, and then they also bring to the table a lot of awesome trend forecasting and a lot of ways of how we can use tools that Google creates to make our lives a little bit easier. So it's really awesome to have to be a part of that organization. I've been a part of that organization since around the Trump administration came into power. It's been really weird.
I bet.
It's been really weird. One thing that was really weird that I'm not sure if I mentioned to you before this, but it was really weird because a lot of the things that are happening now, we were forecasting. We were working against behind the scenes, and people just really. It's very interesting to see how that plays out. One of the big things that we were talking about was internet speed, and how like internet speed is really, really slow in low income and rural areas, and then really fast in high income areas and in cities and suburbia, right? So what happens? We get COVID-19, and everybody is forced to use that resource. And guess what happened? So many people have really shitty internet speeds, and it's affecting their livelihood.
Yeah.
That was one thing. There were so many other things. IP and protection rights, specifically for digital means. It's really weird. It was just one of those strangest things to be like, this is what we're talking about. This is what's going to happen. And we knew it was eventually going to happen. And then when it all just came so quickly, it was really interesting to see how people responded, especially in the policy side of things. So that's the other thing, is that I get to see what a lot of this policymakers and lobbyists and what it looks like. And I gotta say that it's a lot more complicated. They make it a lot more complicated than it actually is.
Yeah.
So for a lot of us that are on the outside looking in, no matter what your political affiliation is, no matter what you believe in, you definitely should be questioning everything, and you definitely should be asking questions. Where's the money going?
Mm-hmm. Why
is this the way that it is? This law, this loophole. There's all sorts of things, it's something to be very like you as a person that has nothing to do with policy. There's little things you can do. Obviously, voting is one, but just asking a lot of questions, and that's what a lot of people are doing more of now, which is so awesome to see. And we should continue to do that.
Yeah, I love that so much. Now I'm gonna do a CJ quiz, because these are my most fun questions. If you could, if you had a dream to open any sort of physical location store that sells something or some kind of service, what would it be?
It'd be a coffee shop in Mexico City.
Shop. Okay, tell us you've got a coffee shop, CJ's Coffee Shop in Mexico City. Day one you get in, what are you doing from a branding, from a marketing, from influencer, all this? What do your first couple of months look like? What do you do?
Wow. My first couple of months is doing my thing as an influencer, creating content on my own with my team, and also promoting the business, doing a lot of I really like to knock on doors and meet people. That's just who I am. So I'm probably doing a lot more in-person things.
Mm-hmm.
I would be doing some digital ads. I would be investing a lot in influencer marketing. And branding wise, again, I'll have that brand declaration guide, everything from the colors to the tone, to the style, to the feeling that I want you to have. And that feeling, brings me the opportunity of this is what I should have on the menu. Yeah. I myself am a minimalist, and I know that the more choices that we have, the more depressed we become, because we feel like we're always making the wrong choice.
Yes.
So I'm going to have a very small menu, and have products that are very special to my brand.
Mm.
But yeah, those are some of the first steps that I would take. That's what the first months would look like, is just getting the word out and having a really awesome vibe, taking a ton of cool content to get the word out.
Yeah, I love that. Perfect answer. As I expected, you would have that just nail on the head.
It's something that I've wanted to do for quite some time.
Yeah.
Like, it's a family project. So it's yeah.
A coffee shop is kind of my dream of one day. My husband is an auto shop, so we've come up with this idea of an auto shop with a coffee shop / bar in it and giant windows. And you do a lot of workshops, and it's specifically catered towards people who don't really know how to do things with their car or maintain their car, but they want to know. I have changed one tire once, and it was a hot mess. And that'd be something I'd love to go to a workshop where I practice 4 times on a car that I'm not going to break and have a beer. That's our dream. If you wanted to just go tit for tat on that one.
So this is going to be really crazy that you said that. I literally jotted that same idea down. I was like, somebody's going to do this because it's brilliant. I think that's more than doable, because, when you're getting your car fixed, what are you doing? You're waiting around. Yeah. So, have you ever heard of Deus Ex Machina?
No.
You should look this up.
Okay.
For those of you out there that know what I'm talking about, shout out to you. That just means you're awesome. But Deus Ex Machina is a clothing brand, and it's all really dope European style motorcycle gear, almost like a motorcycle version of Supreme.
Yeah.
And it's all like surfer motorcycle culture. And you've definitely seen their content because they take beautiful photos, beautiful videos, and their brick and mortar places are sprinkled throughout Europe and in Venice, California, and all sorts of different really cool places. But it's a coffee shop, and you buy clothes there, and it's like a place where if you ride a motorcycle, that's where you go hang out.
Yeah,
and it's like European style. So it's not like people that ride motorcycles that are like Harley Davidson riders. These are more so like, people that like to travel around the world, like digital nomads, sipping lattes and working on your Italian bike.
Yeah. I love that. I think this is like my perspective of what the future of retail kind of looks like, is combining shopping and experiences and services and community all together. And I think that's what we're kind of trending towards, which that's a beautiful evolution that we're going through.
I think
it's a great future we're looking at. So only 2 more questions left for you. One, you are constantly taking in content, looking at brands, trying to get inspiration from so many different places. What or who kind of inspires you the most on a daily basis?
Yeah, I try to balance my consumption a lot more than I did when I was younger, because I think that it was actually easier to consume and get inspired by other creatives. But now, so many people copy off of each other. What I actually do now, as far as inspiration is concerned, is I look at I'm always looking at virality and what's trending or what's about to trend. I've gotten really good at trend forecasting years ago. So what I actually do is I pay attention to popular journalists on Twitter, and I also pay attention to meme accounts on Instagram, the really, really, really funny ones, and see what the shareability is like. And from a visual standpoint, I already was like following high-end creative directors and photographers. But all of that has shifted so much that I really look at like how you're able to build a community and how you're able to get the word out faster. Yeah. So that's what I'm really looking at. I do look at TikTok videos with my daughter, but that's more so for like, having a laugh. But it's really good at seeing, I jot down notes sometimes of like, oh, that's going to pop off, or oh, that's going to be pretty popular. That's going to be a good share. And I remember that like, what was it, the Latino dude that had the feather on his head, skating down, listening to Dreams
with the cranberry juice.
Yes. I thought that was brilliant. And I remember seeing it and I'm like, oh, this is going to go viral. And this is the reason why I knew it was going to go viral. I knew it was going to go viral because it was super random and it was very chill. But there's a whole generation that has never heard of Fleetwood Mac and they've never heard that song. So you see that song with that image. That is a really great example of like what virality looks like and a really great example of like advertising in a very unique way. Obviously, that dude got a ton of advertising dollars after that and a lot of opportunities. But that's a really good way, even from a business perspective, of like, oh, okay, that works. So it's not necessarily that things have to have like a high quality, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to look a certain way. It just has to have a certain feeling and a certain style.
Yeah.
And as human beings, we really, really, really gravitate towards nostalgia. So if you're able to use that when in a way of also making you feel like you're being a part of the next big thing, not necessarily that you're part of the big thing, but the next big thing, those are really amazing subliminal ways of attracting new customers.
Yeah. Oh, I loved that. Such a great answer. Now, final question of the show. It is called Resilient Retail. We ask everybody this. What does resilience mean to you?
Yeah, I think resilience in a lot of ways means that you have the ability to adapt to any situation that comes your way. I say this all the time, personally and professionally speaking. You want to be an immovable object and an unstoppable force. As an immovable object, no matter what's going on in the world, you take what's going on with the election craziness, don't let that impact your mood. You need to be focused on what it is that you are trying to achieve for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for your life to find success and happiness. Be an immovable object. Be an unstoppable force. No matter what. Put your thoughts into action, put your words into action, and don't stop. If the world were to end tomorrow, you don't want any regrets. If Trump wins in 2 seconds from now, or Biden wins 2 seconds from now, it should not stop you from whatever it is that you feel like is your mission in life.
Yeah.
And for those of you out there that aren't quite sure what that is from a personal standpoint or a business standpoint, I would love for you to do this one exercise, and that is jot down or type it up, however you want to do this. I'm a firm believer that handwriting adds a little bit of an element of that nostalgia and that impact of like soul searching. And I would write down what your best day would look like on a random ass Tuesday if everything worked out for you. And let that be your reference for moving forward and being resilient.
Yeah, that becomes your own personal branding Bible then. And you're just searching for that.
Exactly. Working towards that.
Working for that. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
CJ, I feel like I wish that we could just have like a Monday morning session with you every week to just keep me going in life. You're so inspiring, so positive, and this has been such an amazing conversation. I know that the listeners are going to love this. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for listening and tuning in to Resilient Retail. And if you want to find me, you can find me on social media at CJ Johnson Jr. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. And I'm wishing you all the best.
Thank you.